Welcome back to another episode of the Four Archetypes. I'm Dr. Lahab Al-Samarrai, and with me today, as always, Dr. Eric Tomlinson is with us. Good to see you back, Eric. Dr. Lisa Hong is with us, as always. And today, a special day because we are going to finish the story of the Porter and the Three Women of Baghdad um, with the tale of the first and second dervish. We're going to go halfway into the story. This is kind of a long Shahrazad tale. And so, just to remember from last week, um, the women invite the porter in, then they invite some more men in. Now you have like seven men in the house, and they break um, the seal that they create a covenant together that they are allowed to stay and see, but they are never allowed to ask. And that was the covenant. And so the seven men break the seal except for Jafar. And Jafar decided this is a bad idea. You shouldn't do this. They do it anyway. And then the slaves appear with swords and bind the men. And now the women have decided that they want to behead the men. And so that's where we are. Um, and we are at the point of the tale of the first dervish. So without further ado, let's get back to our story and we'll have a analysis at the end of the first half of this story because it's a long story, but the first half of the story, we will last week and this week, we will get into that. All right, Dr. Lisa, take us away.
The Tale of the First Dervish. My lady, I will tell you how I came to lose an eye and shave my beard. My father was a king. He had a brother, also a king, who had a son and a daughter. As the years went by and we grew older, I would visit my uncle and stay with him a month or two before returning to my father. Between my uncle's son and me, there grew a bond of love. On one of my visits, he was kinder than ever, slaughtered many sheep for me and gave me wine and sat with me to drink. When the wine had overcome us, he said, "Cousin, there is a scheme I have been plotting for a year. Let me tell you about it." "I am listening," I said. He made me swear not to betray him, and then he left me for a while and came back with a woman, covered up from head to toe, her perfume headier than wine. "Cousin," he said, "take this woman to the cemetery and find this tomb." He told me where, "and I will meet you there." I, unable to protest, agreed, and took the woman to the tomb and waited for my cousin, who arrived with a bowl of water, a bag of mortar, and an axe. With the axe, he broke open the tomb and set the stones aside. Then he dug into the earth until he came upon an iron plate, the size of a small door, long and as wide as the tomb. He lifted up the plate, and under it appeared a spiral staircase. And to the woman he said, "The choice is yours." And she went down the steps and disappeared. "Cousin," he said to me at last, "a final favor." "What?" "When I go down," he said, "put back the iron plate and cover us with earth." I did as I was told, still drunk, and returned to spend the night in one of my uncle's houses, which he had given me to use while he was on the hunt. When I awoke and recalled the events of the night before, I thought it had all been a dream and could not be sure. But when I asked about my cousin, nobody could tell me where he was. So I went back to the cemetery, tomb to tomb, but could not find the one and stayed there wandering, not even stopping to eat or drink until night. The details of the previous night returned to me as one recalls a dream. In the morning, after a little food and sleep, I was back in the cemetery trying to recall what he and I had done, but I could not find the tomb. He went back a third day and a fourth, with no more luck until I felt I may go mad, and I saw no better course than to go home to my father. But as soon as I was there through the city gates, I was detained and bound. What is this? I protested. I was told the vizier had returned against my father, won the army to his side, and had killed him, had taken power, and had given his guards to the order to lie and wait for me. At this news I fainted, and I was taken to him. Now, I should say, my lady, that the vizier and I were enemies. Since I had taken out his eye, an accident, you see, I had a crossbow, loved to shoot at birds, and was in the palace roof one day when I saw a bird land on the vizier's own roof, where the vizier happened to be also standing. But my arrow missed the bird and hit the man and pierced his eye, which dangled down onto his chest. That is why he hated me. When I was before him, he set upon me with his finger, thrust it into my eye, and gouged it out, and I let it ooze onto my cheek. Then he had me bound and thrown into a closet where he gave me my father's executioner. Take this man, he said, on your best horse to the desert, kill him, and leave his body to the beasts and birds. The executioner obeyed. When we reached the desert, he dismounted, removed me from the chest, and was on the point of murder when he saw me weep. Then he wept too. With my eyes on him, I said these lines. I thought you were the shield to keep me safe against the spearman's dart. You were the spear. I thought your help in danger as the left arm seeks the right. Now stand away and let the spearman aim. For if you must disown our friendship, please do not side with my foe. The executioner, soft with pity, set me free. Run away, he said, and don't come back, or they will kill us both. As the poet says, if you suffer, save your soul. Leave the house to mourn its builder. Nothing lost, there will be other homes, no second you. Do not entrust your mission to another but yourself, your truest friend. Nothing swells the lion's neck but his own breath, his best defense. I kissed his hand, hardly believing I was saved, and lost the loss of my eye, no longer such a hardship beside the death I had escaped. I slowly made my way back to my uncle's city and told him what had happened to my father and my eye. I have worries of my own, he said. My son is missing, and I have no news of him. He wept, reviving my old grief, until I could not hold my tongue, and told him what his son had done. Take me to the tomb, he said. Uncle, I have lost the way. Let us go together, he said. We stole into the cemetery, and there, a thrill of recognition, was the tomb. We stepped inside and swept away the earth, found the iron plate. Down the stairs we went, my uncle ahead, and after 50 steps, we met a cloud of smoke. There is no power, said my uncle, and no strength except in God. At the bottom of the stairs was a hall, which led to a room held up by pillars, lit by shafts that only looked out to the sky. All around the palace were jars and sacks of flour and grain. And at the far end of the room there was a bed, covered by a canopy that hung down to the ground. When my uncle lifted it, he found his son in the arms of the girl who had let him down, but they had turned to charcoal, as if they had been cast into a raging fire. The sight appeared to bring my uncle joy. He spat in his son's face and said, This is your punishment on earth, and there are no more to come. Then he removed one of his shoes and struck his son across the cheek. When I saw my uncle strike his son across the face, I said, Has he not suffered enough? Listen, said my uncle. Since he was a boy of this son of mine was in love with his sister. I kept them apart, only children, so I told myself, but when they were older, they did the deed and I found out. I took my son aside and said, Watch out, or your disgrace will be recorded in the lives of kings until the end of time, and your shame will travel in the mouths of travelers to other lands, and what you did will be remembered under another sun. Beware, she is your sister. God has forbidden her to you. And I did what I could to divide them, my uncle said. But the girl loved him too, and for the devil in her mind made her think that this was good. To escape my interference, my son must have designated this place below the earth and furnished it like this and dug this well, and carried down all they would need. Then they must have waited for me to go away to hunt, and come here together as you saw them do, thinking they were safe to give each other pleasure for a long time, and that God would forget them. My uncle wept, and I with him. You will be my son instead, he said. I thought of what happened to his son and daughter, and the murder of his brother, and the gouging of my eye, and he let his tears run free as I did mine over the trials of life and the world's sorrows. Then we climbed out the tomb, and I replaced the stones, the iron plate over my cousins, and we crept back to the palace undiscovered. But hardly had we settled when a clattering came from outside, drums and trumpets, men and horses, and the world became a cloud of dust. When, in our bewilderment, we asked what we had missed, we were told that the vizier had deposed my father, had raised his armies, swelled them with nomads, and descended upon us as many as grains of sand, impossible to count and to withstand. They took the city by surprise so that its people, helpless to resist, surrendered. My uncle was killed, and fearing I would perish too, I fled the city. My sorrow was renewed as I considered what happened to my uncle, my father, my cousin, and my eye, and I wept bitter tears. What could I do? If I were to show my face, all my father's soldiers would know me as they know the sun, and would be quick to kill me to win the vizier's favor. I could see no better way to save my life than to shave my head and my beard and eyebrows, change my clothes to rags, and live the dervish life. In this guise, unrecognized, I left my father's city and journeyed to this country with Baghdad in mind, hoping to find change of luck, dreaming I might even find my way into the presence of the Caliph, commander of the believers, and tell him my tale. This very night I reached the city gates, uncertain where to turn, when this dervish by my side approached me, looking like he too had traveled far, and I said, "Stranger?" "Yes," he said, and I said I was too, when another dervish, this man here, came up to us and said, "I am a stranger." And we said, "So are we." We roamed together in the night until, guided by fate, we found ourselves outside your house, and you were kind enough to let us in. "Pass your hand over your head," the owner said, "and go." "Let me stay," said the first dervish, "to hear the stories of my friends." The story goes, my happy king, that all who heard it marveled at the tale of the first dervish, and the caliph said to Jafar that he had never heard a stranger story in his life. Then the second dervish came forward and said,
Unmute.
The tale
The
of the
tale
second
of the
dervish.
second dervish. My lady, I was not born one-eyed. My father was a king, and he taught me the Quran according to the seven schools. I studied law with scholars, Arabic and its grammar, the art of speaking and of writing, and I gave myself to learning until my mind was the first of its age and my name was on the lips of kings. When the king of India heard of me and pressed my father with rare gifts to send me to his court, my father saw me off with a convoy of 6 horses. We took the postal road and made our way for a full month until one day a cloud of dust flew up around us for a while, then scattered to reveal a band of 50 horsemen, lions shooting scowls and cased in steel. They were highwaymen, and at the sight of our small company, our camels piled with gifts, they trained their blades on us and charged. We tried to tell them we were messengers to the great king of India and could not be harmed, but they said this land was not his and not subject to him, and they killed all my men. I escaped with a deep wound, the riders having turned their minds to loot, and I wandered, not knowing where to go, a mighty man brought low. I went on until I met a mountain where I slept in a cave, then wandered until night, eating plants and fruit. I traveled like this for a month until I reached a city, bright and peopled and safe. A city frost had fled, and spring had lit with roses, and set the rivers babbling, and filled the birds with song. I was happy, entering this city, and worn out by the road, and pale with care. Another man entirely, my face and hands and feet all filthy, and uncertain where to turn, I entered the shop of a tailor, who returned my greeting, and detecting in my manner the trace of better days, welcomed me in and sat me down and asked me for my story. I told him my adventure, first to last, and he softened and said, "Hide your secret. The king of this city is your father's great enemy. There's a blood feud between them." Then he brought me food. We shared it, and when evening came, he cleared a corner of his shop and made me a bed and saw to my needs. I stayed with him for 3 days. Then he asked me a question. "Have you no skill with which to earn a living?" "I am a scholar trained in law," I said, "in letters and in poetry, grammar, and calligraphy." "Your trade," he said, "is worthless in these parts, but I know nothing else." "Then roll up your sleeves, take an axe and a rope, and go and cut wood in the wild for your bread. If you want to live, tell no one who you are." He brought me an axe and a rope and turned me over to a group of woodcutters. I went out with them, cut wood all day, brought it back on my head, and sold it for half a dinar, which I gave to the tailor. In this way I spent a year. As I went into the wild one day, deeper than before, I found a meadow thick with trees and stitched with silver rills. And as I went in deeper, I came upon the stump of a great tree, and I dug around it with my axe until it struck a ring fixed to a plank of wood. I lifted it, and stairs appeared beneath. I went down the steps, and at the bottom was a palace of strong build and elegant design. Inside was a woman like the rarest pearl, whose speech was balm for any wound and magnet to the wise. She was 5 feet high and firm and soft and fair, and her face shone bright through the night of her locks, and her teeth flashed pearly white. The woman said, "Are you man or jinn?" "I am a man," I said. "What brought you to this place? In 25 years I've not seen another soul." Her words were sweet to me and touched my heart. "My good fortune brought me here," I said, "to chase away my cares." And I told her my adventure first to last. She wept for me and said, "This is my story. I am the daughter of Aftimaris, king of Ebony Island, who married me to my cousin. But on my wedding night, a jinn abducted me, took me flying through the air and landed here, and brought all I would need of food and drink and sweets. Once every 10 days, he spends a night with me and then leaves. He has a family. But if I ever need him night or day, I have only to touch these 2 lines on the step for him to be with me before I lift my fingers. Now 4 days have passed since he was here, and 6 remain till he returns. Will you spend 5 days with me and leave one day before he comes?" "If dreams are true, I said I will." Please, she led me by the hand through an arch to a bath, where she took off my clothes and hers and washed me. Then she dressed me in a gown and sat me on a sofa, fed me sherbet, set a feast before me, and I ate my fill. "You were tired," she said at last. "Lie down and rest." I slept, my lady, forgetting all my cares, and when I woke, I found her rubbing me and my own soul refreshed. "Wine?" she said. "Let us drink," I said. From the cupboard she brought out a stoppered flask and set a splendid table and began to sing. If I had known my love would come this way, I would have laid a mantle of my blood, my own black eyes upon the street, and tiled the earth with cheeks, and made an avenue of eyelids for his feet. Love for her took over my whole being and chased away my gloom. We kept up our talk and drinking until dark, and then I spent with her the sweetest night of all my life. And when we woke, delight followed delight until midday. I drank so freely that I lost my wits and staggered left and right. Come, my lovely one, let me carry you up out of this prison. She laughed and said, calm down. In every 10 days, only one is for the jinn and 9 is for you. But drink has overpowered me. I will break the step right now, I said, and kill the jinn. I kill them by the tens. She grew pale and said, for God's sake, don't. But my haze was stronger, and I gave the step a kick. Then everything was dark and trembling. There were blasts of light, and all at once my mind was clear. What now? I said. The jinn is here. She said, go up and save yourself. Up I went, but in my terror, I forgot my sandals and my axe. I had not reached the top when I turned to see the palace floor divide and the jinn, a monster of ugliness, appear and say, what troubles you so that you trouble me? No trouble, she said. My heart was heavy, and I took a little wine to lighten it, and when I rose to relieve myself, the wine overcame me, and I fell against the step. You are lying, said the jinn, who looked about and saw my sandals and axe. He said, whose are these if not a man's? I've never seen them until now, she said. They must have clung to you on your way here. That is absurd, said the jinn. You shall not deceive me. Then he stripped her, tied her down, bound her hands and feet to stakes, and began to torture her, pressing her to confess. And I, unable to endure her cries and gripped by fear, crept up the stairs, and at the top I closed the door and covered it with earth, regretting everything and thinking of the young woman, her kindness and beauty, the agony she suffered at the jinn's hands, and the peace that was hers for 25 years, and how in a night I had ended it. I thought of my father and his court, and how life had turned against me, forced me to cut wood, how for a while it had been good to me and then struck me down again. I wept and blamed myself and said these lines. My fate is like an enemy. It shows me only hate. If once it stoops to kindness, it soon mends its mistake. Then I went back to my friend the tailor who was waiting for me as if on hot coals. My heart has been with you all night, he said. I thought some beast had taken you. Thank God you were safe. I thanked him for his concern and retired to my corner, where I sat mulling my adventure, blaming myself for being rash. And as I sat there, sunk in thought, the tailor came to me and said, outside there is a Persian man who has your axe and sandals. Go and get him. At these words, I turned yellow with fear. The floor before me was split, and there appeared the Persian man, that very jinn. He had tortured the woman viciously, but she had not confessed. So he had taken the axe and the sandals and said, as surely as I am Jarjaris, born of the devil's seed, I shall bring you back the owner. Then he went with a ruse to the woodcutters and found me. In a flash, he snatched me up and took me soaring, then to earth, and waking from my swoon, I found myself in the same palace, where I saw the woman stripped naked, bound, and bleeding. My eyes filled with tears. The jinn covered her and said, woman without shame, is this not your lover? She looked at me and said, I do not know this man. It would not be lawful to tell lies. If you do not know him, said the jinn, take this sword and cut off his head. So she took the sword and came to me, and when she was close, I made signs with my eyebrows that she understood. She made signs in return as if to say, is this not all you're doing? I made signs asking for mercy, and she replied with words written in tears on her cheeks. Throwing down the sword, she said, "How can I strike the neck of one I do not know, and who has done no harm?" The jinn turned to me and said, "Do you not know her?" "Who is she?" I asked. "I've never seen her until now." "Then cut her head off," said the jinn, "and I'll believe you do not know her and let you go." "I will," I said, and I took the sword and raised my hand to strike. With her eyelids, she said, "What? Is this how you repay me?" And with her eyebrows, she made signs I understood. And with my eyes, I said, "I give my soul for yours." Our eyes spoke for a while. It is the art of lovers to express with eyelids what their lips have left unsaid. A glance at him gives me the news I missed. How sweet to linger on his face. What heat he eyes that want to speak, in eyes that want to speak. Beloved lids spell out a note for loving eyes to read. "Jen," I said, throwing aside the sword, "if a woman with little sense, messy mind, and muddled speech will not kill someone she does not know, how can I, a man, kill someone I have never seen? I will not do it, even if I have to drink the cup of death." The jinn said, "You have talked behind my back. Here is the consequence." He took the sword and brought it down on the woman's wrist and sent her hand into the air, then sliced the other off. In her agony, she saw her fingers fly and looked at me with dying eyes, and I passed out and wished for death. "This is the punishment of those who cheat," the jinn declared. Then he turned to me and said, "We have it in our law that if a woman cheats, she may be killed. This one I kidnapped on her wedding night when she was 12 and knew no man but me. I would come to her every 10 days in the guise of a Persian man, and when I was sure she had cheated me, I killed her. As for you, though I am not certain you have wronged me, I cannot let you go as you are. Choose what I shall change you to, dog or donkey, lion, beast, or bird." I, hoping for mercy, said, "It would be better if you spared me as the envied spared the envier." "What is their story?" asked the jinn. And I said,
In our next season, we will pick up the envied and the envier. So, Dr. Eric, what are your thoughts about the dervishes trying to plead their stories so they are spared, like the same as Shahrazad is doing, of course? She needs to be spared. She needs to be spared by the king.
well, the second jinn's story in particular just hit me more emotionally. I really wanted the two of them to escape
Yeah.
and be away from the jinn and live and finally live a life of peace,
Yeah.
uh, and seemingly compatibility.
Yeah.
It was just it was kind of heartbreaking to see how that story ends.
Yeah. Dr. Lisa?
Uh, this is one of those stories where she's demonstrating Shahrazad is demonstrating, hey, these people are in whatever promise was broken. Like you can see everything, but you can't ask about what it is, or the covenant of marriage, and like instead of punishing everybody, let me show you some people in power who demonstrate mercy for telling a story about
Yeah.
mercy. The
Yeah.
the demonstration of that.
Yeah.
So
People whose life are on the line.
mhm.
So she's also creating a narrative for the king to see her as a person who is both a victim, and she also plays the story of the victimizer. But she shows that the victimizer is merciful,
Merciful, yeah.
because she does show his cruelty, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cutting of the hands. She does show the cruelty of what these people who are empowered do, but that ultimately they can be merciful.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's talking him, even though it's a very complicated story, she's also showing him a very particular thing about women, that there is a variety of women and they have a variety of opinions and they have a variety of motivations. They're not all what you think they are. She's um, showing him the complexity of women by telling these stories. Right?
I think she's also in a I guess in some ways a subtle way, and then in other ways not so subtle. But to someone like him, uh, who's so sociopathic, it's probably pretty subtle.
Yeah.
Uh, but she shows him through this story of the second gen. I mean, of the second dervish, that she doesn't care anything about him. She's only with him for survival's sake, and she'd much rather be with someone else. Because, as a matter of fact, she found her true love
Mm.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't love you. The only reason you have me is because you basically own me in my life.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would ever get through to him,
Yeah.
but the message is there and it's clear.
Yeah. The first dervish, he loses his eye, quite graphically, actually, the way they describe it. But he loses his eye. The second one loses what he treasured most. So it's what I see and it's what I love. Fascinating story. Shahrazad is definitely she's upped her game. The
Mm.
stories have become longer, more sophisticated. The time that is elapsing from story to story is she's drawing him in more and more, um, and she's creating a psychological healing state by using story and narrative to help him overcome his rage and narcissism and sociopathy. You So,
Mm.
any other thoughts for this season? We started Arabian Nights.
I would love in the beginning of next season to do a brief synopsis of all the stories we covered in a very
Great idea.
quick presentation, just so we
Great.
can see the arc
Yeah.
of topics that are covered, characters that are brought in, themes, draw
Yeah.
common themes.
Yeah.
Very good.
We'll do a special recap of the first part of the annotated Arabian Nights. Yeah. The annotated 1001 Nights, the Arabian Nights. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, thanks for putting up with us. We have enjoyed um, these stories. I hope you're enjoying us telling stories. Um, and so we will see everybody soon. Before December, hopefully, we will be back with more of Shahrazad and the Arabian Nights. As we always salute you from the IFC, as we always sound off, we wish for peace and the end of fascism in this world. We hope that everybody is wishing for peace, working towards peace. Okay, with that, I am Dr. Lahab Al-Samarrai. This is the IFC, and I am not afraid.
See you on the other side. I am not afraid.
I'll be there. I am not afraid, and not a dadgum one of us is afraid.
We are the IFC, and we are not afraid. Thanks, everybody.